Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Troy Gramling Podcast, where Troy Gramling is nowhere to be found. That's right, this is Sibling Takeover. I am your host, Tyler Gramling, and I'm joined by my siblings, Carson, my younger brother Carson.
Come on.
You want to say anything?
More attractive. You forgot about that part.
Yes.
More attractive, more handsome,
Definitely funny.
more intelligent.
More of a clown, for sure. And then my younger sister, our baby sister, Bailey. You want to say hi?
Smartest.
The
of us all.
smartest. I love it. And we are also, I'm joined by my awesome wife, Amber.
Yeah.
And
Keep going.
Carson's awesome
Yes.
wife, Jess.
Yes.
Thank
go.
you.
So we are hosting this episode, and we are going to be sharing all the juicy, good secrets of the Gramling family. Listen, if you enjoyed the Murdoch Murders documentary, you're going to love this episode.
Hey now,
Wow.
we may not come out, all of us.
Better watch our backs.
Yeah. We may not make it out alive.
We're going to have some fun today, and we just hope to make you guys laugh, entertain you, and maybe give you some nuggets of wisdom along the way, and hopefully give you a reason to tune in next week.
Yeah.
So I really hope we don't butcher this thing, and
I don't think we'll ever get the mic again.
we killed the podcast.
Oh, no.
No. It's going to be good, going to be a good time. And so I thought we'd kind of just take a moment, introduce ourselves. We can start over there with you, Jess. Tell us who you are, kind of the role that you hold in the church, because in case you guys didn't know, we are all actually on staff at Potential Church, where Troy and my mom, Steph, pastor. So we can share kind of our roles and anything else that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't
Jess.
know if there's anything else interesting about me, but my job is very interesting. So my name is Jess. I am Carson's wife. We've been married for 3 years, and I've been on staff at Potential for going on 7 years now. But my current role is the communications manager. So I work with our awesome designers and basically everything, to merch and and basically all the fun stuff. So I'm a part of the fun stuff.
You got to give us something in Portuguese, though.
Oh gosh.
Come on.
I don't know. Should I tell a secret?
Yeah.
Okay. Come back to me.
Okay.
She's
Pressure
fake.
got to her.
She's not Brazilian. She's
on Google
lying about it.
Translate as we speak.
Poser.
My name is Carson Gramling, Carson Luke Gramling at that. I am a youth pastor here at Potential Church. Am I supposed to introduce myself?
Yes.
We're all
Yeah.
introducing yourselves,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Go for it.
Amber's dying over there, so I'm just making sure. So my name is Carson Gramling. I am a youth pastor. I'm an Aries. I am.
Really?
I don't know. I'm not
For all the
sure.
horoscope people out there.
Yeah.
that needed
good.
to
I'm
know.
not sure I am, but
None of us have any idea what that means.
yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I am Bailey. I'm the youngest. I've been on staff for like 5 years, I think. I have no sense of time. I just threw that number out there. I'm not going to lie. And I am the content creator. So all things graphic design, photography, all of the creative, like Jess said,
The
fun
fun
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, we love to have fun here at
Yes.
Potential. So, like I said earlier, I'm your host, Tyler. I am a campus pastor of the Cooper City location, and I've been on staff for 10 years this year. And my wife, Amber, we've been married for 8 years.
Yeah. Good
now
job.
going on 9.
Yeah.
Almost at our 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. And
Sorry.
I'm hosting this podcast.
Yeah.
So it's going to get interesting.
It's good.
That
All
it
right.
is.
My name is Amber, the best for last. Just
Yes.
kidding. And I'm married to this guy. And what you didn't mention is we have 2 beautiful kids,
Yes.
Lion and Luna. Lion's 4.
I forgot about
and
them.
Yeah, I did not. I birthed them. I don't know. You never forget about which birth. But
No.
anyways, Lion and Luna, and they are our pride and joy. Oh, and what I do here, I do work on staff here. We celebrate 10 years, like he said, and I am the associate campus pastor. And along with many other roles, anything I'm asked to do, I'm here to do. So, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I think we can all safely say that ministry or pastoring was not on our top list of careers when we were growing up. And I was thinking about it kind of want to ask some questions that I think the listeners, the audience would find interesting, but also gives us an opportunity to kind of open up and share kind of a look behind the scenes of our family, kind of our experiences in ministry and that sort of thing. So what if we took a moment and just kind of said what we planned on doing before God called us into ministry? Because I think for all of us, it really was a calling. It wasn't something we were forced into, wasn't an expectation that our families put on us, but something that we were called into. But what did we plan on doing before that call to ministry? Who wants to start?
That's a great question, Tyler Gramling, our host. I never necessarily, like you said, planned on doing ministry, but I also didn't have high aspirations outside of ministry before I jumped into it. So after high school, my plan was to work within around the ocean. I loved going to the beach. I loved being at the beach. I was going to try and be a lifeguard. And so that was the only plan I had. I didn't have this whole, like, I'm going to, go to college and get this degree to go do this. I didn't really have much of a plan, but you are correct in the fact that my plan was never to jump into being a pastor. That definitely wasn't it.
I didn't know that about the ocean. I mean, I knew that you enjoyed the ocean, but to be honest, I thought you were either going to be a Power Ranger or a magician.
Maybe like when he was 9.
Yeah. How far back are we trying to be?
I've seen you in that gap from when I was 9 to 18.
Didn't you work at Maui Nick's?
No, I worked.
What was that job on the beach? That
He sold acai bowls.
Yeah,
I taught people how to paddleboard.
Acai bowls on the beach.
Having
That's the
never
closest
paddleboarded
thing.
in his life.
Yeah. So I was teaching people, tourists, how to paddleboard.
Come on.
I'd never been on one in my life.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
I
but you're
found,
living the dream.
and this is a little tip for those who are watching, I've found that if you keep things vague, you can kind of sound like you know what you're talking about whatever it is.
Yeah.
You just stay vague. Just, hey, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
It's all about,
That's how you do
as long
it.
as you
Yeah.
keep your balance,
You're good at that, though.
That is a life lesson right there.
There we go.
Love it. All right. Bailey?
Well, I definitely never planned on doing ministry. I'm probably the most shocking one up here. But I kind of jumped all over the place. I don't think that there was like always this one thing I wanted to do. At one point, I wanted to be a tattoo artist. Another point, I wanted to be a veterinarian. Mom was sold. She really thought I was going to be a vet. And then I realized you had to be the one to put animals down. And I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of jumped all over the place.
That's good.
I think for me, I don't know. I mean, I knew I felt called to ministry when I was in high school. So it's not like I had this like college plan and started studying or going to school for something else. But I wanted to be a lawyer for a little while.
Well, I can tell you, if things don't work out in ministry, I think lawyer is a good backup.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I've always, would you say argumentative would be a good word?
Stubborn. Yeah.
One might say.
Stubborn.
All those.
Yeah. So lawyer.
I also wanted to be a lawyer, if that proves anything.
Yeah. And I,
Oldest children right
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like it was interesting. It interested me, and good job. So I felt
Yeah.
like lawyer would have been that or a bartender. I will be honest.
What about both?
Every time we go to a restaurant, he's always like, do you know that if I weren't doing ministry, I just think it's so interesting if I could be a bartender. I'm like, a bartender? You want to make the mojito? Like,
I think it'd be I've heard it's actually not that great of a job, but I just thought it'd be interesting to make these drinks, get all creative with it, like do fancy tricks, throw bottles up in the
You
air.
can do that at your
Being
house.
able to do that. I don't think you're coordinated.
And
enough
talk
for
with
that.
people. Get to
you can do
know
it with
people.
Lion and Luna's drinks, like with
Yeah.
Luna's milk.
Oh.
There you go.
You know?
There you
Put
go.
it in the shaker.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe some vanilla syrup.
Be the best.
All right. What
Well,
about you?
I never thought I would be in ministry. My family was in ministry. My mom worked on staff here for 21 years, and I was like, no, I'm not doing ministry, not going to be on staff. I went to school to be a psychologist, and I just was interested in people's minds and like why they thought and why they did what they did, which serves me well today. But then I fell in love with you, and God made me decide if I was going to marry you. I needed to determine whether I was going to be in ministry, and I decided I was going to do it. So here I am. So, yeah.
What about you, Jess?
I think I had probably a similar story. I think most of us, well, really all of us, we've been blessed that ministry became something we were called to at a very early age. So I don't have this like story of, oh, I was 30 and I was doing something else and then ministry called me. But I think it is a blessing in that I found my calling so young. But I probably went through everything: lawyer, I went to school to be a psychologist, but I definitely think it helps me now, but definitely in my calling now.
Awesome. So kind of want to get into it and, have some fun with this, but like I said, really help people think and kind of give them some wisdom for, their daily lives and how they operate and, really how they can just continue to pursue their potential. So I want to ask this question to Carson and Bailey, and I'll answer myself after you guys. But what are the greatest joys that you guys experienced growing up in ministry? Because we've been in this since all of us were born. So what are some of the greatest joys you guys have experienced?
I would say for me, it was, it's interesting because the things that I enjoy the most now, I didn't when I was young. When I was young, I was so frustrated that it was just constantly about church. Everything was about church. And as I've gotten older, I'm so thankful that, being in ministry from such an early age, that we built that base of we know where our hope, where our joy comes from. Because once you start making your own decisions as you get 18, 19, 20, it was so helpful to know, hey, this is what we've experienced in our life. This is what's worked. This is what hasn't worked. And to know through all of it that, God has protected our family. He's been there with our family through everything. So that base has been huge. Also, one thing that's really cool about Potential is how geared towards leadership our church is. And so, it's been really interesting and cool to, as we jump into ministry, we're kind of talking about these concepts with leadership that you can tell other people haven't had that same opportunity to have learned from such an early age. And so being able to be a part of, these meetings where we're talking about these high concept, leadership qualities and characteristics from such an early age, I just think it's been so beneficial to probably all of us.
That's good.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been a pretty creative person, so I knew when I came on staff that I was hoping that's kind of the lane that I would fall in. But what's been really cool is being a part of a creative team with people who do a ton of different things, whether that be video or graphic design or set design or just like a bunch of different things. I've been able to, as I've grown up, when I graduated high school and everything, watch everyone do what they do really well and learn from them. So I just have like a bunch of random things that I know solely because I've had the opportunity to be able to watch people who can do a million different things do what they do and learn from them. So it's really helped me as a creative kind of round out what I know now.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how you guys answered. It really shows that within the local church, there's such an opportunity to exercise your gifts, cultivate your gifts, and really make an impact. And that's what I would encourage any listeners with kids. Get your kids in church. Yeah. Get them in a good Bible-based church. Include them a part of the kids ministry. Like, let them grow up in it, because I think a lot of times the fear people have is, well, if I force it upon my child, they're going to turn away from God. Yeah. And we forget in Proverbs it says, well, train up a child in the way that they are bent and they will not depart from it. And that's God's promised us. And I think that when we grow up in the church, what we really experience is we kind of grow into ourselves. We learn more about our giftings, our talents, our purpose. And within the body of Christ, there's always an opportunity to exercise that and to grow in that. And I feel like that's one of the greatest joys that I've had in growing up in ministry. Is it's a place where I've been able to discover my gifts. It's a place where I've been able to stretch and grow in my gifts, and a place I've been able to exercise those gifts. And how many people get to say that all within the same place they were able to discover, develop, and exercise their gifts. I mean, that's something that's so rare, and I love that is the body of Christ. That is the local church. And so that's probably one of the greatest joys I've experienced. And then just the legacy. I get excited for my kids that, just as we've been able to stand on the shoulders of our parents or another spiritual giants, every generation is going to be able to stand higher and go further. And so I just think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question to Carson. All right. So that was a good, serious question, right? Drop some wisdom there. But I want to ask this question. What is the most trouble you have ever gotten into? Like, as a pastor's kid, maybe it was something in church or maybe it wasn't.
Come on, Carson.
The most trouble.
Give us the dirt.
So ironically, I get people saying a lot, like, you must have been the troublemaker. And I really wasn't. Like, I'm not a huge troublemaker, but one thing I will say, and this was my biggest fail as a pastor's kid ever. It was Easter weekend, right? Biggest weekend of the year. And I was doing lights for the youth service. And there's a bunch of kids in there and everything's going great. And, you know, I'm a middle schooler, so I'm short. So my feet are swinging from the chair. And as my feet are swinging, I kick the computer, which shuts off everything in the building. Everything. And as a typical pastor's kid, I blame the sound guy. I said, yo, I saw him messing with something. It was this guy. He didn't know what he was doing. I told him not to, and he turned everything off. And so I just blamed the person next to me. But I literally shut off everything. Easter
And they probably
service.
believed you, too.
Yeah, and the sound guy never came back.
Yep, they took him out back.
Sound guy, if you're listening to this podcast,
Right.
come back. We
Sorry.
miss you. We're sorry.
Yes,
We're sorry.
absolutely.
I love that. Well, we've all had our fair share of mistakes, right? Growing up in ministry definitely does not make you immune from making mistakes. And Bailey, you're the youngest, right? You're the baby of the family. So I don't know what that's like. I'm the oldest. And so I can't relate to maybe some of the challenges. But I think one of the advantages is you get to learn from the mistakes of those
The many mistakes.
that came before you. So what did you learn from watching Carson and I? Like, is there anything you learned not to do?
I mean, obviously I've learned very different things from each of you, because if you guys have never talked to either of these two, they are very opposite personalities in pretty much every way, to the extreme. So naturally I've learned different things from both of them. I think from Tyler, I think one of his biggest strengths, and even as he married Amber, one of their biggest strengths together is leadership. And so from them, I've learned a lot of just how to be a good leader in general. And then I think from Carson, ironically, you guys are all going to laugh when I say this, but hard work, because I think that was something that he struggled with when he was younger.
Ironic, isn't it? It's just crazy.
Ironic. Well, because
ironic
Carson,
if you know
I
the
know,
story.
because he
This guy.
talks about all the time
Yeah.
about how he struggled with being lazy when he was younger, but I do genuinely believe that he's one of the hardest working people now that I know.
Yeah.
I agree.
Almost to a fault, probably. But definitely learns what it means to work hard and like humility, self-awareness. I think all of those things are some of his biggest
good.
strengths that I've got to learn from.
Awesome. I love that. Now,
Tyler's like, tell me more.
hype
you guys
Tell
up.
me more.
Tell me
Keep
what's
going.
good
tell
about
me
me,
more
guys.
about myself. Yes. Say more good things. All right. So obviously we have Jess and Amber on here, and they have a unique perspective because they joined. We were born into this. They actually made the choice to be a part of this.
Oh, man.
So,
What do we
Question
do,
that every
Jess?
day.
I
Yep,
know.
they must have been drinking that night, I'll tell you that.
they made the choice to be here. So I'm actually really curious to hear from you guys. Maybe one of the challenges that you had in joining the family, but then also maybe something that you learned from that could benefit our listeners and viewers.
Yeah. I would say probably one of the biggest things that I learned from joining the family was I've always been one to handle pressure well, but I had to learn how to manage the pressure. I remember when we first started dating, and then it was really when we got engaged that the rumors started to come and the people started to talk. I remember there was a rumor out there that, Tyler didn't buy my ring, the church bought the ring, and, he's just blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then there was other rumors that, you know, that Amber's only marrying Tyler because, you know, he has status and he's part of the Gramling family. I'm like,
Which is true, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Like,
Got him.
I mean, shoot. Like, and I'm like, no. Like, you don't know me. Like, you have no idea at the fact that, like, you know, like our journey, our story, and like feeling like you have to like defend, you know, your stance or like defend like your position like in the family or whatever. And I felt like there was just all this pressure and these different rumors, and just kind of learning at the fact that like you don't have to, like, just be confident in where you're at and where God's, you know, created you to be and who God's called you with, and all of that stuff is going to continue to come, and you just kind of got to push through it. So I think it was just one thing of just continuing to learn to manage more pressure and more pressure, because I think that the more that you go along this ministry journey and the more that you gain more influence, the more pressure that you begin to be under, and you just have to learn how to deal with it. So it's testing my confidence.
I had a unique perspective too, even different from Amber, because I married the middle. So I already had two people go through the, you know, trials and tribulations of that. So I was able to learn from example. So I remember when Carson and I were dating, we were probably maybe 6 months into dating, and Amber took me out to coffee, and she kind of laid down, hey, I can see that you guys really like each other. Here's what it looks like, which was really important, I think, to see. Almost like it was an exact perspective, because it was the woman marrying into the man in the family. So I was able to get a really clear perspective of what it looked like as a woman going into that family, and, you know, just tips and tricks. But something that I learned personally was really the importance of your own personal influence. You know, having the Gramling name may look like something here at the church, but obviously I never had the Gramling name until 3 years ago. Yeah, so the influence that I have as Jess will continue on as Jess Gramling. So if my influence as Jess was not something good, or something that I, you know, fought for and, you know, got tips on and learned from and was humble in, then Jess Gramling doesn't mean anything either. So I kind of just really, I was able to reflect on that, you know, with the perspective from others before me, and come into the marriage and the name Gramling with a good perspective on influence and the meaningfulness that this legacy has, the Gramling family.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's awesome. You know, something I've always been really passionate about, and I think this translates to anybody who's listening or watching. You know, I've always been passionate that, you know, your status or your gift or your, in our case, your last name may get you through the door, but I really believe that it's the character, the integrity, and the sacrifice that actually gives you the influence and gives you the ability to impact people around you. You know, and that's something that has to be earned. It can't be given. Nobody can give me influence. Nobody can give you influence. They can open a door. They can give you a platform. You know, they can give you an opportunity. But, you know, an opportunity is different than just a gift. An opportunity still has to be stewarded, you know. And I think for me, Carson, and Bailey, you know, we've grown up in this. Our family has always been in some sort of a spotlight. And I wanted to ask you guys, what have you felt has been the greatest challenge growing up in the spotlight, and what have you learned from that?
That's good.
I think, kind of just to piggyback off of what they were saying, I was always a very private, shy, like hated the spotlight type of person. So it was really hard for me growing up to have to deal with all of that pressure, and just feeling like people had, you know, a certain set of expectations for me, that I was going to be a pastor, that I was going to follow in everybody else's footsteps. Thank you all for getting ordained, by the way. That made it super easy for me.
Hey man, I'm in your boat too.
But so that was really hard for me, because it was just not something that I was confident in. It's not something, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so everybody telling me what I was going to do made it really hard for me to be able to find myself and kind of find my confidence, find my lane. So yeah, that was a big struggle for me, was dealing with that kind of pressure and being confident to say, you know what, no, this is me, this is who I am, this is who God's called me to be.
Was there a defining moment that you felt you overcame that, or is there a tool that you use to continuously fight that feeling of needing to meet a certain set of expectations?
I don't think it was like one moment. I think, honestly, over the past couple years is where I've more so found my confidence and like, this is my lane. Because I came on staff as an intern right out of high school. So I knew that I was a creative person, but I didn't know what that meant for me yet. And I knew I didn't want to speak. Like I was just in this space where I was still kind of pushing back on certain parts of it, you know what I mean? But accepting certain parts by coming on staff. But I don't think it was like one defining moment of this is, you know what I mean? Like I'm okay with this. I think it was just more so finding the confidence over the past few years and doing things outside of my comfort zone, like doing the welcome or speaking on this podcast or whatever, that's kind of pushed me to find. And some things I realized weren't for me that I thought were. So I think it was just by pushing myself to do things that made me uncomfortable, I kind of found my confidence and my lane.
That's good. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Carson, what about you?
Yeah, I would say, so for me, it's been interesting because there's been so many more positives than the negatives. But one of the most challenging things to deal with is as as we all kind of decided, hey, this is, ministry is something that I think I want to pursue. One of the challenges is when you start, you don't know anything, right? Like anytime you start in anything that you've never done, you don't know anything about it. And so you're going to make a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
And for most people, when you make a mistake, people might feel a type of way about it. People might be frustrated, but they're frustrated with you because you made the mistake. And in this situation, when I would make a mistake, it not only reflected poorly on me, but it reflected poorly on you, on Bailey, on mom and dad, on just the whole Gramling family. And that was a struggle because you're going to make mistakes, right? Like you're not going to do it right. Like you're in the process of learning how this all works and how people think of you. And so I would say that's probably been the most challenging part is just as we're learning, not by any means that we haven't figured out yet, but as we're learning, that reflects upon the whole family, which can make it challenging to really feel like you have a space to make mistakes and learn.
No, that's really good. I think we can all relate to that. For me, I think part of how I'm naturally wired is, I say that I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I think that's part of my personality, growing up in ministry out of it. But I do think that growing up as a pastor's kid, the devil used that to kind of trap me in really becoming a chameleon. I felt like even at a young age, I knew how to respond to different people, and I knew how to change colors, and I knew the right answers to give people that they wanted to hear. And when you do that enough, you really start to lose your identity, and your identity starts to become what other people think of you. And that's a dangerous place to be in. And maybe some of our listeners are in that place. They feel like they have to live up to a certain set of expectations that have been put on them. They can't make mistakes, or it reflects badly, not just on them, but a group of people. And they feel like they have to be a chameleon. They just have to tailor to the needs of everyone. And I remember the moment that God really established in my heart that he has not called me to meet the needs of everyone. He has called me to meet the needs of specific ones that he is calling me to, but he's not called me to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. And with that, he's not called me to please everyone. I mean, he's called me to do what is pleasing to him. And so for me, that was probably the biggest challenge of feeling like I needed to please the people around me in order to be successful, in order to be looked at a certain way. And I feel like how I overcame that was just through God's word, of knowing like this is what God's word says about me, and I am pursuing him, and I'm pursuing things that are pleasing to him. And that will build my reputation, that will speak for itself, but it doesn't mean that I have to be what everyone wants me to be.
That's really good.
All right, guys. Well, we have had fun on the Troy Gramling podcast, and we hope you guys have enjoyed it. Make sure to tune in next week when we drop another episode of the Troy Gramling podcast. But for now, this is your host, Tyler Gramling, and the rest of the siblings signing off.